Hi everyone, and welcome to a very special spiritual guidance offered to you by 1millionnights.com. Today we have a rather special day, maybe not necessarily in the most favorable sense, but it is what it is. Today Mars is officially retrograde, and it's going to stay that way until the 14th of November 2020. So this means a rather difficult period for all of us, because Mars is the expression of our wills, our ambition, the sovereignty of our beings. That is where our powers lie. And when it retrograde, it turns inward. And many times that can mean that it cannot express itself in a very direct way. So usually at every Mars retrograde, it is a time when we have to hold and contain our personal powers, even if that power sometimes denotes anger, or we have to take a very specific action in a very instantaneous and quick way. Well, we have to hold it in, and that is highly uncomfortable. But from an astrological perspective, we have a very special video analyzing this Mars retrograde globally. Then we also have another video where we split it up personally, what it means for you and your star sign. But this is a tarot reading which analyzes this spiritually, where I also seek the guidance of the universe on how this Mars retrograde can affect us mostly psychologically, but as well what it is that we need to do, any guidance or advice to turn it into our greatest advantage. Because when Mars turns inwards, it is also a build-up of inner power, so that means alchemical power as well. And from a totally different perspective, it is actually a very favorable energy, especially in its home sign of Aries, to complete things which are left behind from the past. It can be obligations, duties, resume passions, resume our old desires, resume everything that needs investment of energy, work, effort, sacrifices. So this can be really, really good, especially if that action left behind from the past is a termination of something, putting a stop to something, closing a chapter, elimination, decluttering our lives through, palpable action, expressing our wills, saying simply no, terminating a contract, terminating a situation, terminating an addiction, escapism, a bad pattern. So it's, personally speaking and spiritually speaking, it's not really doom and gloom, because there is a lot of big and important inner psychological things that we can accomplish, and naturally it can turn into a very strong motivation to endure, to do it, to resist, and courage to face even the most unpleasant things. For example, if you want to get rid of an addiction, well, that is definitely not going to be pleasant whatsoever, and you will need a lot of courage and determination. And what a perfect opportunity a Mars retrograde is for anything like that. But of course, this is just astrology, this is just example. Let's get to the reading and see what the universe actually advises us to do. Now, the very first card that opens the reading is the 10 of Cups reversed. Now, naturally, this means different situations and different energies for different people. In a very general sense, while the 10 of Cups is a card of fulfilled, completed, manifested happiness, and in reverse position, well, it is the opposite of that. So basically what the universe tells us, that personally, it is a really good opportunity for us to use this Mars retrograde and all the celestial empowerment, because Mars is also gonna meet Chiron, the wounded healer, so perfect energy for healing, and Eris, goddess of discord and rebellion. So basically it means we have the power to eliminate from our lives everything that goes against our happiness, everything both internal and external that basically either takes away our happiness, pollutes our happiness, poisons our happiness, because even if we physically achieve the state in order to be happy, in order to have everything in our lives that we need, but sometimes other people, a situation, an energy even, can just pollute it, for example, envy, jealousy, etc., and we cannot actually enjoy and immerse into the happiness that we have created in our lives. Another expression of this energy is to have the courage, to have the strength and determination to pursue that which truly makes us happy, no matter the cost and the consequences. And the Ten of Cups is also a very karmic card, so maybe karma, fate, is gonna conspire in our favor as long as we tell it, express that yes, right now, all we want to do with our lives, with our existence, with our divinity, with our power, is to seek and find happiness. Now, for other people, this can turn into something a little bit more complicated and painful, because the Ten of Cups is also the card of divorce, separation, ending a relationship. Of course, divorce not to be understood in legal terms, because that would be a sword card, for example, Two of Swords, a Justice card reversed, etc. But this means from an emotional perspective, so basically facing the truth that the relationship is simply not working and we can no longer fix it, and trying or continuing to fix it is gonna simply lead nowhere, or to our greatest unhappiness, if that makes sense. While for other people it's not so much about marriage, partnership, being in a long-term relationship, but about people who are permanent guests in their lives, best friend, relative, family member, who makes you unhappy, and you just have to put a stop to it. Or you have to express your true feelings. Now, for other people still, this isn't a relationship that exists in their lives in a physical manner, but rather it represents the past. It can represent the memories of an old and toxic relationship where you have been truly hurt, disappointed. Someone might have took away your self-confidence, your self-worth. They might have made you feel that you're just tolerated, that you're just an wasted space, etc. Then in that case it means getting rid of the trauma, getting rid of the memory, and simply using the fiery nature of Mars to purge it out with fire. It is painful because you have to confront the truth of how much it really hurt you, and of how much that old memory and that lived experience is still alive inside of you. So, symbolically speaking, it can be like an ego death, because if that memory determines who you are, if that memory makes you toxic to yourself, then the whole identity of that person who was the victim has to die. And Mars is just like Pluto, because it is the lower octave of Pluto. It's the god of war, so you can simply terminate that identity of yours which no longer serves you. Now the next card is the King of Swords, and this is a really, really good energy because it represents the uprising of the intellect, the light of our consciousness, logic, rationality, being in touch with reality, especially your own personal reality, using your mental, intellectual creativity, writing, expressing your truth, doing your research, beginning new studies, well, for other people, having the courage. But this isn't like a Martian kind of courage where you just believe this. This is where it makes perfect sense to your intellect, to your mind, to become a teacher because you have so much experience, and why not share it? So this means that for a lot of people, this Mars retrograde is gonna show them who they truly are at the very core of their minds, of their intellects, and even in their unconscious minds. And that means that a lot of false image, false beliefs, as in false self-image, is gonna be burned away, and you will learn to trust yourself, trust your judgment, trust your mind, trust your highest cerebral activities, not because you have to force this on yourself, but because it makes sense, because you are truly capable of this, because your mind can truly guide you in the most favorable path for you personally. And if we add a little bit of astrology in it, the age of Aquarius, the Aquarius is exactly the King of Swords, because it is the most favorable expression of intellect. It is also where intellect can be compassionate, it can serve others, humanitarianism. Now that is not just watery compassion like Pisces, that is a compassion which you exploit or you accomplish with your intellect. You know, when it makes sense to help others, when it makes sense to use your creativity to make the world a better place, when it makes perfect sense to bring other people in a position of equality, because ultimately equality means happiness, and equality means that they can develop in a totally different way, and they can also reach one point in their evolution when they become strong enough to start sharing their own humanitarianism and charitable projects, or the fertility of their minds. So the universe advises us to have the courage to be that King of Swords. Now, if that King of Swords requires us to abandon fantasies, to abandon religious nonsense, because one way or another, even faith, even spirituality, even religion has to make some kind of sense. So there has to be some kind of logic to it. It doesn't necessarily have to be linear logic. Non-linear logic is absolutely fine, but what isn't fine is blind, rigid, dogmatic faith, where it has to be in a certain way because a book says it. Now that is illogical, and the King of Swords doesn't work with that. So this card may tell all of us collectively that by the end, as Mars gets to the end of its retrograde season, we can see an uprising of the intellectual element, but in its most constructive and favorable expression. That is exactly why the king is here and not the queen, because the queen can be very, very hair-splitting, it can be extremely perfectionistic, and most of all critical. And that many times is not helpful, especially when we face a global turmoil. We don't really need that much criticism, but rather we need ideas and solutions. And even if that involves trial and error, it doesn't, have to be criticized. It doesn't have to be, attacked. In tarot, the element of air intellect is depicted as swords. Now, those swords shouldn't be cast in the hearts of other people for no real reason, just because there's a small flaw in their thinking or vision or whatever, but rather those swords should be used to cut through reality, to cut through the dimensions, to cut through matter, earth. And that is exactly what the age of Aquarius is gonna do for us. Now the other card is the Eight of Wands reversed. Now this is an even better news, because this card actually has a very powerful spiritual connotation, which means manifestation. But this manifestation is not quick. In order for it to be quick and instant, the Eight of Swords should be in upright position. But under the present circumstances, it is actually quick manifestation, because it is not what you desire right now that is going to manifest, but rather all those seeds of intentions that you have planted 8 months ago. Whatever you have worked on, whatever you've been passionate about, whatever you have been planning, whatever you have been asking the universe is now gonna come your way. Now, we can symbolize the Eight of Wands as arrows. And each arrow is an intention, each arrow is a desire of yours, and you shot those arrows into the universe, and the winds of fate carried them. And right now those arrows are returning back to you with manifestation. Now, this can mean so very many different things. It can represent unexpected communication, which changes your situation totally in a favorable way. It can represent contracts, legal matters coming together perfectly. It can also represent romance, love, soul level connections. It was this that you desired. If it was this that you basically asked the universe to deliver you 8 months ago, then that is what's coming your way. And the symbolism of the Eight of Wands supports this perfectly, because it is fire, it is passion, it can be love at first sight, or it can be a long distance relationship becoming a normal relationship. Globally speaking, it can have a different kind of expression, but it is also good news because it can represent scientific discoveries which simply change the world. But these aren't just, step-by-step progress. This is something like massive, revolutionary, never seen before, new space technology. We can see this in the present moment, SpaceX, and who knows what they have been planning 8 months ago, and now they're going to reveal it and surprise the world. It can also represent, for example, finding life on other planets, Mars, Europa, something not, big as in intelligent alien life, but even a microorganism is a fantastic news. Discovering new planets, discovering new, for example, theories about cosmology, how the universe works, Big Bang, etc. So all of this is really good news, but I must say that there is also a shadow expression of this card, where the Eight of Wands reverse can speak about aviatic disaster, a massive calamity, explosion, or the most destructive power of the element of fire. But even though, the destruction, the turmoil, the disaster, the accident, whatever this is gonna be very negative and it's gonna lead to suffering, but still something good or a forced evolution, a forced change is going to follow that event. In its worst expression, it can represent the destructive force of faith and, religion. So this can also point out to a massive terrorist strike or religions clashing, etc. But either way, even if it's very, very negative, it is going to be like a massive wake-up call where people globally, collectively are going to take action, and ultimately it is going to lead to a very powerful change of ideologies or worldviews. Now the reading is closed by the Queen of Wands reversed. Now this card is also really, really favorable, because the Queen of Wands reversed can represent one way or another putting a stop or striking back against discrimination. Now, it doesn't really specify what kind of discrimination this is. It can be, for example, racial, and we can see that playing out on the world stage right now as we speak. But it can even be, for example, like highly intelligent people discriminating less intelligent people. So that does sound like the fall of capitalism, but I don't think it's gonna be that radical. Especially that, yes, Mars retrograde lasts more than a month, but I do not think that a month is gonna be enough for this. But maybe it will be just the start of all of this, when something really, really symbolic happens in one part of the world, and the whole world is going to follow that example. Now, personally, not taking into consideration the times that we live in or what's going on in the world, Well, the Queen of Wands reverse can represent becoming free from the energy of envy. So this can be a very good spiritual period for all of us to basically reconfigure our inner value systems and, purify our desires. For example, maybe we desire something very, very passionately, let's say a car or a jewelry, or it can be absolutely anything, even something non-material. But then sometimes we just go deep within ourselves and ask ourselves, well, why do I desire this much? Why is this so very important to me personally? And then we already start to discover the seed of envy inside of us when, as we go through that logical process, we get to the core of the things where, usually because a neighbor had this and how happy the acquisition made the neighbor, or my cousin, or my schoolmate, or anyone benefited from something and it made them so very happy, and it was us seeing their happiness that triggered this desire to become so very intense or obsessive even. And by acknowledging this in our minds, well, that is already a massive blow to envy, because these unhealthy desires are immediately gonna lose their power, their grip over us, and they're gonna be replaced by our authentic desires. And then, for example, we can alchemize this. Let's use the example of the car. Well, you always wanted the car because a person that you knew had it and it made them so happy. And then by acknowledging this, it's gonna lose its intensity. And then your true desire will come to the surface, that you wanted a car, any car, in order to travel whenever you want to a favorite place of yours, which would be not accessible in any other means of transport. And then you already alchemize the fake desire, the envy, into a pure one. And then it will make you happy instantly, because you figured out your true dream, your true desire, that it is the place, you being able to go to that place that you love so much, that is happiness for you. And the car doesn't really matter. The car is only the means of transport, and anything that has a motor and can, transport you is good enough. And then you can alchemize it even further than this. So from a very, very expensive luxury, or I don't know what kind of car, it immediately becomes, for example, a motorhome in your soul, because a motorhome could give you the chance not just to visit the place, but to spend more time there. So that is when your dream, your desire, becomes even more perfect, and it can make you that much more happier. But of course, this is just an example. I'm not saying that this is the case of every single person, but you can take this example and apply it to your own situation. What is your desire? Why is it so very strong in your heart? And how happy will you be after you achieve it? And is that happiness truly significant for you personally? Is it gonna last? Or is it gonna be a moment when you come face to face with the illusion and you will have no choice but to jump onto the next desire? So this is a really, really easy and simple to use psychological methodology to check in with yourself and see that which you desire, where it stems from, and if it actually serves your greatest good. And when you get the answer that you desire something, regardless of what it is, because either it makes you happy or it is important for your soul, then you're already aligned with purity. But for example, if you desire that specific ring because you saw it on someone else's finger, well, then you already see the illusion and can eliminate it. And this Mars retrograde period, especially in its home sign of Aries, is so very important because that is how we purge our instincts. And if we purge envy out from our instincts, well then it will never ever be hidden and we are going to be free of it for a very long time. So this concludes your reading. I really hope you enjoyed it. And please remember, if you'd like a personal reading or guidance, just log on to 1millionnights.com and find your dedicated advisor. In the month of September, we have a very special promotion going on. If you buy any of our prepaid packages, you get 10% credit bonus for you to enjoy. Thank you again. Wish everyone a blessed and safe day. Until next time, bye for now.